Welcome to the Sam Sorbo Show. This is part 3 of my interview with Chloe Cole, the young woman who transitioned and then transitioned back. And because after about 3 years, she started to feel differently about having the double mastectomy and the hormones and the puberty blockers. And she's speaking out. So fasten your seatbelts. There's more to come. Hi, I'm Sam Sorbo. You've heard me talk about Mike Lindell, who I adore. You know, he's the inventor of My Pillow, and how that pillow has given me a good night's sleep that I need. In fact, I never knew how good I could sleep before I had my Pillow. Mike continues to roll out new offers on his products, and the latest one is on his towel sets. Towels aren't something you think about often. I never knew what I was missing until I tried the towels just last year. Now, you have all helped build My Pillow into the incredible company that it is today, and you've trusted Mike Lindell to give you a great night's sleep. Mike's now changing the game with his 6-piece towel set. The set's made with USA cotton, making it extremely absorbent, and yet still providing that soft feel you look for in a towel. The set comes with 2 bath, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths, typically retailing for $109.99. But for a limited time, you can get this set for the low price of $39.99. And that's using promo code Sam Sorbo. So remember, all My Pillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. You just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener specials to get this insanely low price of $39.99 on the towel set. You'll find deep discounts on other My Pillow products as well. So enter promo code Sam Sorbo, or you can call 800-625-5983. That's 800-625-5983 for these great radio specials. All right. Welcome back to the Sam Sorbo Show. There's my guest, Chloe Cole. We're talking about her transition into a trans kid from being a young female and now back again. And we got to the point where she was on testosterone. She had taken the puberty blockers, and all of these things were starting to cause health disruptions and other problems. And so how old were you when you first started considering, wow, maybe we have to back up because we never got to the top surgery. And you must have still been feeling pretty high off of the testosterone to consider going so far as to have the surgery, right?
Yeah.
So can you describe
I was 15 years old when I started thinking about getting it. I was about 2 years after 2 years on testosterone, and I'd also been binding for about 2 years. Are you familiar with binding?
Binding. So you bind the chest so that it
looks using a device called a chest binder, which it should really be called a breast binder, because it's like a compression device. Basically, it covers either the full torso or half the torso, and it basically like pushes the breasts into the rib cage to compress them and make sort of like the effect of like a flatter, more masculine chest. So I would wear those about every day that I would go out, including at school. And I live in a pretty hot area of California. I would walk home from school in like 110 or so degree weather, wearing like jeans, a t-shirt, and a binder underneath all that. And I was getting really sick of having to deal with that. And
that's when you started considering the surgery.
Yeah. And I also I really wanted to like be able to like do things shirtless, like an actual boy, like
a guy.
Swimming, running, just being able, I guess, to hang out without like having these things on my chest. And I also I'd also when I was searching, I was subject to groping in a classroom, and that I didn't realize it while I was transitioning, but that left like a huge mark on me. And even from a young age, people would like, make comments on my body, and I just hated having that kind of attention. And there were just so many factors as to why I wanted to get it, even if I
What
didn't realize it
comments,
at the time.
what kind of comments were you getting on your body prior to you trying to transition? Were you getting comments prior or after you started to transition? Were the comments
Prior.
like, you still look like a girl or whatever?
I'm talking about prior. Like
Prior.
once I hit puberty at a pretty young age. I was no older than 9 when I started to hit puberty. And
Oh, so you're 9 years old and your body is starting to become womanly and people are making comments about it and you're 9
mhm,
and
yeah,
you're going, why
from
are
my
they talking
peers to
about me?
like the adults around me. And I hated I just hated hearing it. And
And there were inappropriate comments, you would say, right?
some were, and some
Yeah,
was just like plain uncomfortable.
right. It became uncomfortable for them to mention it, but there were
Hmm.
some inappropriate comments and you're like, why are they talking about me that way? That's,
Hmm.
yeah, because you shouldn't be looking at a 9-year-old in a sexual manner. And so if somebody is
Hmm.
commenting on the sexuality of the 9-year-old, that's a sexualized comment directed towards a 9-year-old is not
And those comments were mostly from my peers, the inappropriate ones.
okay. I I I just heard a story about a second grader having sex with a kindergartner on a school bus. So nothing shocks me anymore, frankly. I'm so inured to all of it. But okay, so you were hearing those comments, you were binding, and that had, in a sense, prompted your um, body loathing. Let's say you didn't like the body that you were growing into, and so you started binding as a way of transforming your physique, and it was terribly uncomfortable. Did it cause any long-term repercussions, the binding, or are we just going to move into surgery?
Um, I mean, the short term, it didn't really cause me a whole lot of like discomfort. Some people report like getting like really bad back pain or like chest pain. I mean, I didn't get any of that. For what it was fairly comfortable for me, and that's part of why I didn't realize that it actually had some long-term side effects for me. I haven't had, it's been about 2 years since I've had the surgery. I haven't had breasts for 2 years, and yet I still have deformed ribs from binding.
Right. The binding deformed your ribs. You didn't realize that that's what was happening, but as a growing young person, when you when you do something like that. In fact, I don't know if you've ever read Les Comprachicos is an article that Ayn Rand wrote years ago, 1950, about these gypsies who would deform children as a way of providing entertainment. The children didn't know that they were being deformed. They would forget about it. They would be drugged. Um, and in a sense, that's what the culture, the society, the people who allowed you to think that this was an okay thing to do, in a sense, that's what they did, because the binding causes long-term effects, skeletal effects
Yeah.
that are going to be, you can't just like put a straw in your mouth and pop you back out again on your ribs, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize this at the time. Like I knew that after a while it was going to deform my breasts, which I didn't really care about because I wanted to be rid of them anyways. But I didn't know that it could also permanently affect other areas of my body as well. I was given the impression that it was just a totally safe practice as long as you buy from a trusted brand, or you do it safely, which there really is no safe way to do it, especially while you're growing.
especially while your body is growing and changing. And okay, so you bound, and then you decided this binding is for the birds because it's just easier if I just get the breasts removed. And so you did that at the age of 15,
Yes.
and your parents were on board.
Yeah. I mean, by
And
this point, they had been like completely just guilted into all of this by the doctors.
and how much was the surgery? Was it covered by insurance?
It was covered by insurance. It was covered by insurance, so I'm not really sure how much it costs.
Okay.
And I was a minor at the time, so I didn't really have access to
No.
that information
And
anyways.
you're a 15-year-old girl. You're like, well,
Mhm,
a 15-year-old child. But you're saying, hey, I want that one.
mhm.
Can I have that? And they say, sure. And they say to the parents, don't worry, it won't cost you anything, or it'll cost you, $100, whatever the deductible, we'll take care of it, and don't stand in our way. And so you go in for the surgery. Describe what it was like emerging from the surgery.
Um, when I woke up from the surgery, it was like, well, the regret hadn't set in yet. That was maybe like anywhere from like a month to 2 months afterward. But
Was it euphoric?
like I was, yeah, yeah,
Woohoo, I did it.
it was euphoric, both because of the I was put under and I was just waking up from that. And I mean, I achieved this milestone. Um, so
It's the
I was
first
I
day of
was
the
actually
rest of your
happy.
life.
I saw it like as a new beginning, actually.
Right.
Um, but then I was very quickly disillusioned with the whole thing,
How
because
so?
I mean, I would have to the recovery process was awful, to say the least.
In what way?
Very gruesome, and I was basically disabled for a while. I couldn't lift my arms up. I had very limited range of motion, not only my arms, but basically my whole upper body. And I
So,
couldn't do a lot of things for myself. I couldn't like go out of the house. And then I had to like take care of the wounds that were on my chest, because, well, not only did they like take the breast tissue out, but they also basically they scraped an area on my chest, and then they took my nipples off, and then they basically like pasted it into that scraped area to basically, they say, masculinize the appearance of the nipples. And that's um I had to deal with the process of caring for basically an open wound, and I was given the impression that that was going to be pretty much fully healed over by about a year. And 2 years later, well after 2 years later, I'm still having some pretty serious complications, and nobody is really helping me. I can't I've realized now that I can't really get any help for this within my healthcare provider anymore, because they're just not going to help me.
I would scream that from the rooftops. I would lead every conversation with that. I, I, they told me it would not be this long to heal, and I'm still not healed, and it's been twice as long. Like,
And they
that's
have
just,
no idea
I
what
would,
is going on with me.
do you have a lawsuit? Is there a malpractice suit that you could, and I mean, I'm sure their defense is, well, everybody heals differently. She was warned, and I'm sure your parents had to sign away all of their rights for, malpractice or whatever. I
uh
wonder, does the paperwork say this surgery is experimental in nature? Their results may whatever the disclaimer is, results may vary, or anything like that. Have you done any research into that?
I I would have to get I would have to get my the consent forms and the post-op forms. I don't know if I have those anymore, but I don't really remember anything like that.
Well, you were 15. You know,
Yeah, it was it
it,
was
it
it,
was your parents who would have been signing everything. And I'm just curious because the way to win on this issue, I think, would have to be through the courts. You have to hold people accountable financially. And I don't know how to do that unless it's in the courts. You're issuing warnings for young women and for parents of young women and boys, right?
Yeah.
You're issuing warnings, but that only goes so far, because what if they don't hear the warnings? But there's a way to shut this down, maybe, in the courts. You make it too expensive for the insurers, they'll stop insuring it. And then the parents will be like, well, why is it going to cost me $70,000 or 20,000 or whatever it is, $6,000, whatever it might be, right? And that's because the insurance won't cover it. It's, or whatever. Like, there. Anyway. Okay. So, as a 15-year-old, you had what has to amount to very serious surgery. They
Yeah.
removed, I can't even imagine. I haven't looked it up online, frankly. It's a little too graphic for me, but they remove the breast tissue underneath the skin, but then they remove the skin and then they sew things back together. They scrape,
Yeah.
you say, because they want to scrape away the fatty portion, right?
No,
The
no, no.
feminine.
The scraping actually was because, so for me, I got the most common type of I guess you could say incision. They basically like cut under the breast and like remove the tissue, and then they removed like the excess skin and basically like put it back together. But not only did they do that, they also they removed the nipples in a process called nipple grafting. And they basically, the way it was explained to me was that it's kind of like scraping a knee but controlled. And so they, on another area of my chest, they basically did that, and then they
Oh,
basically like put the nipple onto that area.
right. They wounded the skin so that the nipple would then graft onto that wounded area.
Yes,
That's okay.
it's brutal.
Wow. Wow. Okay. To a 15-year-old girl with healthy tissue. I just want to point out to everybody, this is to a 15-year-old girl with healthy tissue. And did anybody go over with you really anything about the procedure, the ramifications from the procedure, what the procedure was? Did they show you any
Yeah,
photos? Did they show you before and after photos?
yeah. The before and after photos, they would show like the before photo, obviously, of the person's breasts, and then the after photo would be of somebody who was mostly fully healed, like maybe like 6 months to a year or several years post-op. And I thought that I was going to look like that. And it was also like all like light-skinned, like Caucasian patients. And I didn't know that like I was going to, that they did disclose that there could be like some pigmentation issues from it, but I didn't know that like that would, I just I didn't know what really that would encompass.
What are pigmentation issues? I don't understand. Oh, because of the
Like with the
scarring. The scarring is
the
white.
scarring, the areolas, and yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. Age 15, you have the surgery. When did you start? Well, you said, I think, just a few months later, you started to second guess because of what? The pain? Because wasn't healing the way you thought it would? Why?
Um, so the pain actually wasn't that bad. It was like a deep muscle soreness at worst. The pain of the digestive issues from being on the opioids in the first few days post-op was actually a lot worse. So I was basically cleared to go off the pain medications in just like 2 days. But the emotional pain was really the word the some of the worst parts of it. Um,
Depression?
Yeah, you could say that. I started to experience a lot of grief just a few months after, but I couldn't really, I didn't really know what the feeling was, and that, or even that it was attributed to the loss of my breasts, because I was so deep in this. I had been transitioning for about 2 to 3 years at this point, if not a little bit longer than that, and I was just in it for so long, and everybody around me, I looked like a boy. I passed fairly well. Everybody around me, I would never have been mistaken then for a girl. I mean, I just looked like a short guy, which is kind of normal for somebody my age, because I was 15. I was still in high school, but um I would say that I really didn't realize how much I was going to regret this until maybe until about 11 months after, when I was taking a course in psychology, and I had a particular lesson that was basically on like maternity and the importance of the bond between mother and child and breastfeeding. And I mean, this was kind of groundbreaking for me, because I never really thought about, like, I mean, I wondered at certain points like whether I'd want to have kids in the future, but I never really thought about how that would look like for me, because I was a kid, and I was focused on other things like schoolwork, making friends, fitting in, and I was a kid. I hadn't really thought about stuff like this before, and I realized that because I made a, a huge life-changing decision in my mid-teens, that I would be taking away opportunities for myself as an adult. I'm no longer able to breastfeed my kids, and now I understand how important that might be. And I mean, depending on how bad the ramifications are from taking the testosterone and blockers, I may not be able to have children the natural way.
You may not be able to
And
conceive.
yeah, I that
You,
that was the first time that it really hit me, what I was really doing to myself.
and so how many years into the mastectomy at that point?
11 months.
11
11
months
months
into the
afterward.
mastectomy, you started to realize I've made a life-altering decision that's irreversible.
hmm
And what happened next?
Um,
Just,
I
just
just kind of spiraled into this dark period over the next few weeks, and
did you seek help?
I didn't know what to do then. I was just kind of left to my own devices until
Yes.
I realized that I can't do this anymore. I have to stop, and I decided to stop taking my testosterone entirely. Um I told my parents, and then eventually everybody around me, that I was going back on my decision. And then I didn't really know, what things would look like from here on, so I kind of just had to do things myself. I like reached out to my therapist, my gender specialist, my endocrinologist, and told them what was going on. And I found that they were generally pretty unhelpful, and I kind of just had to do research of my own as to where to go from here. Um, I had some online support groups, but it's really not the same as like having support in person. Um, I lost a lot of friends both online and in person over this, and I was just kind of alone for a bit.
What were, how did your parents respond?
They they were supportive of me detransitioning.
they were supportive. So they embraced you. They said, okay,
Hmm.
we're,
Hmm.
we love you no matter what. And
Hmm.
when we're supportive of this decision, because maybe this is really what's best.
Yeah.
And how did they behave today? Do they chastise themselves? Do they feel guilty? Do you know?
I I honestly don't. I can't really speak for them.
Okay. Um, and this was still, what were you, a sophomore in high school at this point?
I was I was at the very end of my junior year once I stopped, and then I was throughout my senior year I was basically detransitioning. Yeah.
And throughout your senior year, so what happened to the friends who you had made, some of whom maybe have started taking steps in the direction that you had, in the path that you had gone? What was their reaction? Did you continue those friendships?
Um, I think I think part of it is that I kind of scared them off because I was just kind of at rock bottom, and they couldn't handle me being upset all the time. But also, um, like a lot of my views were like changing rapidly, especially around like transitioning. And I had a very, I guess you could say, more, I don't want to like make it about politics, but I had like more of like a left leaning group that was very like, I guess you could say, like pro LGBT.
Sure.
And they're basically like, their view was that basically anybody could transition no matter what. And because my views were starting to clash with theirs, I think we were having like more disagreements, and they just didn't want to deal with that, and so they kind of just dropped me. I actually had a friend who was who was transgender, and he initially, when I detransitioned, he actually wasn't very upset about that. He was but once I started speaking out, he's since he's expressed that he's very upset with me, and we're no longer friends.
How dare you try to prevent other young women from going through the pain and agony that you've suffered? Yeah. Uh, it's funny, we often say it's a very common thing. I don't want this to be political, but everything is political. It just is. And the fact that because of what it is, people make it political. So
Mhm.
you're standing for what you believe, and what you believe is not in and of itself political, but it has been politicized by
Yeah.
people who actually benefit by making it political. Because if they can make it political and you're trying to remain neutral and not political,
Yeah.
then they've essentially silenced you just by making it a political thing. So
Yeah.
you got to just own it, embrace it, and say, this is what it is. I speak the truth. This is my experience. You can't judge me for having an experience. You can't chastise me for being truthful, right?
Yeah. I found that at first I was basically being silenced. Even once I started saying like, wow, I'm starting to regret my transition. I don't like how the hormones have made me look, and I just don't feel good about any of this.
You know what?
I
Hold it
had
right there. I just have to take one quick break and we'll be back. This is the Sam Sorbo Show. Stay with me.